Waking up to chaos, Jessica Blake's phone would not stop buzzing. It vibrated so hard across her nightstand that it fell onto the hardwood floor with a crack. She groaned, pulling her pillow over her head, trying to block out the sound. It was Monday morning. She had exactly zero interest in dealing with whatever crisis awaited her. But the buzzing continued. Then her laptop started pinging. Then her tablet joined the chorus. What on earth? Jessica threw off her blanket and grabbed her phone from the floor. The screen was somehow still intact. But what she saw made her wish it had shattered into a million pieces. 417 notifications. Every single one about her. The top headline made her blood run cold. Tech billionaire Nathan Cross, secretly married to employee Jessica Blake. She whispered. No. She scrolled frantically through the articles. Every major news outlet had picked up the story. There were photographs of her and Nathan from last night's company gala. In one picture, his expensive suit jacket was draped over her shoulders. In another, his hand rested protectively on her back as they walked toward the exit. The media had written an entire fairy tale romance based on 2 photos. Jessica stumbled out of bed, her legs tangling in the sheets, and fell face first onto the floor. Her forehead hit the corner of her dresser, and stars exploded across her vision.
Ow.
She screamed toward her roommate's bedroom. Rachel, I need you right now. Rachel Kim appeared in the doorway, still in her pajamas, holding her tablet with wide eyes. Babe, you are trending worldwide. Like #1 trending. Above the presidential election? This cannot be happening. Jessica sat up, pressing her hand to the growing bump on her forehead. I'm not married. I barely even know. Nathan Cross. He once rejected my request for new office chairs because sitting comfort is not a productivity metric. Well, according to the internet, you know him very well. Rachel sat down beside her on the floor. The Wall Street Journal is calling it the romance of the decade. Bloomberg says it's a modern Cinderella story, and Twitter is losing its collective mind. Jessica grabbed the tablet and read through the articles. Each one was more dramatic than the last. Anonymous sources claimed they had been seeing each other for months. Someone said they had witnessed secret meetings. Another person swore they had seen them kissing in the parking garage. All lies. Complete fiction. I'm going to lose my job, Jessica said, her voice hollow. Worse than that, Nathan Cross is going to sue me for damage to his reputation. I'll be in court for the rest of my life. The intercom from the building lobby buzzed loudly, making both women jump. Ms. Blake. The doorman's voice crackled through the speaker. There's a Nathan Cross here to see you. He says it's urgent. Should I send him up? Jessica and Rachel stared at each other in pure terror. Tell him I moved to Canada, Jessica hissed. Tell him she's not home, Rachel added. But the doorman, clearly starstruck by the billionaire CEO in his lobby, had already given permission for Nathan to come up. He's on his way to the 5th floor now. Jessica looked down at herself. She was wearing pajama pants covered in cartoon pizza slices and an old college t-shirt with a hole under the arm. Her hair looked like a bird had nested in it overnight. Dark circles shadowed her eyes from staying up till late binge-watching cooking shows. I cannot face Nathan Cross looking like this, she whispered. You don't have time to change, Rachel said. He's probably already in the elevator. 3 sharp knocks echoed through the apartment. Jessica's heart hammered against her ribs. She took a deep breath, walked to the door, opened it. Nathan Cross stood in her hallway looking like he had stepped out of a magazine cover. His charcoal gray suit was perfectly tailored. His dark hair was styled with precision. His steel blue eyes were completely unreadable behind his designer glasses. We need to talk, he said without preamble. The gala disaster about what? Jessica crossed her arms defensively. The fact that the entire world thinks we're married? Yeah, I'd say we should probably discuss that. May I come inside? Jessica stepped aside reluctantly. Nathan entered her small apartment, and she suddenly became very aware of how different their worlds were. His penthouse probably had more square footage than her entire building. Rachel waved awkwardly from the couch. Hi, Mr. Cross, I'm Rachel. I'll just be in my room if anyone needs me. She practically ran down the hallway. Nathan turned to face Jessica, his expression serious. I have a proposal. A proposal? Jessica laughed, slightly hysterical. You want to propose more problems? Because I think we have enough already. I want you to marry me. The room tilted sideways. Jessica grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself. I'm sorry, what did you just say? A contractual marriage arrangement. 6 months in duration. You would portray my wife. I would portray your devoted husband. Both parties benefit from the arrangement. Both parties benefit? Jessica's voice went up 3 octaves. Nathan, have you completely lost your mind? He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. I've prepared comprehensive documentation. The contract includes salary compensation, performance bonuses, clearly defined behavioral expectations, and specific termination clauses. Jessica stared at the folder like it might explode. You made a contract for a fake marriage? I made a contract for a mutually beneficial business arrangement that happens to involve marriage. That's the same thing. Nathan adjusted his glasses, a gesture she recognized as his way of processing stress. Let me explain the situation. My grandmother, Margaret Cross, is terminally ill. She has made it clear that she will only transfer control of Cross Technologies to me if I can demonstrate that. I have a fulfilling personal life outside of work. She believes I am too focused on business and incapable of forming meaningful human connections. And she's wrong about that. Jessica asked before she could stop herself. Nathan's jaw tightened. The point is, she requires proof that I am settled and happy before she will sign over the company. If I cannot provide that proof, she has threatened to donate the entire corporation to various charities. So you need a fake wife to convince your grandmother you're happy, essentially. Yes. Jessica sank onto her couch, her mind spinning. This is insane. You realize this is completely insane, right? I prefer to think of it as creative problem solving, Nathan. People don't just get fake married because it's convenient. That's not how the world works. He sat down on the chair across from her, maintaining perfect posture, even in crisis. I am offering you $75,000 per month for 6 months of your time. Additionally, you would receive the promotion to Senior Marketing Director that you have been working toward for the past 3 years. Upon completion of the contract, we would execute an amicable divorce, and you would continue in your new position with a 60% salary increase. Jessica's brain short-circuited at the numbers. $75,000 per month. That was more money than she had made in the last 2 years combined. She thought about her overdue student loans, her mother's medical bills from last year's surgery, her brother's tuition that she had been helping cover, the leaking roof in her parents' house that they couldn't afford to fix. Why me? She asked quietly. You could hire an actress. Someone trained for this kind of thing, because the media has already created the narrative. Fighting against it would be more difficult than leaning into it. Additionally, you already work for the company, which provides built-in credibility. And frankly, you are one of the few people who has ever spoken to me without fear or excessive deference. My grandmother will find that authentic. Jessica remembered the incident at the gala. She had been on her 4th cocktail, complaining loudly to Rachel about Nathan's ridiculous management style. When he had walked past carrying champagne glasses and tripped on the antique carpet, soaking them both, she had snapped at him without thinking. Most employees would never dare speak to Nathan Cross that way. But Jessica had been too frustrated and too tipsy to care about consequences. You want me to marry you because I insulted you? I want you to marry me because you treat me like a human being instead of a corporate entity. He met her eyes directly. That quality is surprisingly rare in my life. Jessica looked at the contract sitting on her coffee table. She looked at Nathan, this brilliant, complicated, emotionally unavailable man who had somehow ended up in her apartment, asking her to be his fake wife. She thought about her family, her dreams, her future. I have conditions, she said finally. Nathan's eyebrow lifted slightly. Which are, you have to actually try, not just go through the motions. If we're going to convince your grandmother, you need to act like you care about me. That means learning actual details about my life. Not just data points in your spreadsheet, acceptable. And you have to smile occasionally. Real smiles, not corporate politeness. Your grandmother won't believe you're happy if you look like you're attending a funeral every day. The corner of Nathan's mouth twitched. I will attempt to display appropriate positive emotions. That's the worst way to phrase that, but okay. Jessica took a deep breath. One more thing. When this is over, when we get divorced after 6 months, you don't get to treat me differently at work. No awkwardness, no special treatment, no weirdness. We go back to being professional colleagues. Agreed. Jessica extended her hand for a handshake. It felt absurdly formal given that they were agreeing to get married, but somehow it also felt right. Nathan's hand was warm, his grip firm and steady. Okay, she said. I'll marry you. Fake marry you. Whatever this is, excellent. Nathan stood, smoothing his already perfect suit. My grandmother will arrive for dinner tonight at 7. She's bringing a relationship specialist to evaluate whether our marriage is genuine. Jessica's voice went shrill again. You expect me to convince a professional expert that we're in love by tonight? I have prepared a comprehensive briefing document with all necessary information about my life, preferences, and biographical details. I suggest you memorize it within the next 8 hours. He handed her another folder, this one even thicker than the contract. Jessica stared at him. Nathan, you can't study your way into faking a relationship. I can certainly try. He moved toward the door, then paused. Thank you, Jessica. For agreeing to this arrangement, I realize it's unconventional. Unconventional is one word for it, she muttered. After he left, Rachel emerged from her bedroom with wide eyes. Did that actually just happen? Did Nathan Cross just ask you to fake marry him? Yes, Jessica said numbly. And I said yes. For $75,000 per month. For $75,000 per month? Rachel let out a long whistle. Girl, you better start reading that briefing document. You've got 8 hours to become an expert on Nathan Cross. Jessica opened the folder. Page 1 was titled Nathan Alexander Cross, Comprehensive Personal Profile. Page 2 was a detailed timeline of his life from birth to present day. Page 3 was a spreadsheet of his daily routine broken down into 15-minute increments. He made a spreadsheet about himself, Jessica said in disbelief. Of course he did. He's Nathan Cross. Jessica kept reading. Favorite food, coffee preferences, childhood memories, fears, dreams, everything organized into neat categories and bullet points. It was the most Nathan Cross thing she had ever seen. And somehow, buried in all that data, she started to see glimpses of an actual person. A 12-year-old boy who lost his parents, a teenager raised by a grandmother who showed love through high expectations, a man who built an empire because he didn't know how to build anything else. This might actually be sadder than I expected, Jessica said softly. Rachel looked over her shoulder at the document. He needs you, Jess. Not just for the company. I think he needs someone to remind him how to be human. Jessica closed the folder and looked at her reflection in the hallway mirror. Her pizza pajamas and messy hair suddenly seemed less important than the enormous responsibility she had just accepted. I'm going to fake marry my boss, she said to her reflection. Going to fake marry a billionaire? Rachel corrected. I'm going to fake marry Nathan Cross and somehow convince his dying grandmother that we're in love. Rachel grinned. This is either the best or worst decision you've ever made. Probably both, Jessica admitted. And with only 8 hours until dinner with Margaret Cross, she had a lot of work to do. Meeting Margaret Cross, Jessica changed outfits 7 times before settling on a simple navy dress that Rachel assured her looked both professional and romantic. Her hands shook as she applied lipstick, smudging it twice before getting it right. You look beautiful, Rachel said, fixing a strand of Jessica's hair. Just breathe. You've got this. I've memorized his entire life story in 8 hours. I know his coffee order, his childhood pet's name, and his exact morning routine. But I still have no idea how to convince someone we're in love. The doorbell rang at exactly 7 o'clock. Nathan was nothing if not punctual. Jessica opened the door to find Nathan standing with an elegant older woman who radiated authority. Margaret Cross was petite, but commanded attention immediately. Her silver hair was styled perfectly, Her designer suit probably costs more than Jessica's monthly rent. Behind them stood a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a tablet. The relationship specialist, grandmother, Nathan said with a slight nod. This is Jessica. Margaret's sharp blue eyes studied Jessica with laser focus. So you're the young woman who captured my grandson's heart. How fascinating that I had to learn about it from the news. Jessica felt her throat go dry. Mrs. Cross, it's wonderful to finally meet you. Margaret, please. We're family now, apparently. The older woman's smile didn't reach her eyes. This is Dr. Patricia Hall. She specializes in relationship dynamics. What? Dr. Hall extended her hand warmly. Don't be nervous, dear. I'm just here to observe. Pretend I'm not even here. That was impossible, but Jessica smiled anyway. Please, come in. Nathan's penthouse was nothing like Jessica's cramped apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the Manhattan skyline. The furniture looked like it belonged in a museum. Everything was pristine, organized, and completely impersonal. Your home is lovely, Margaret said, though her tone suggested she found it cold and unwelcoming. Thank you, Jessica said, trying to remember the cover story she and Nathan had rehearsed. We've been so busy with work that we haven't had time to really decorate yet. How convenient. Margaret settled onto the white sofa like a queen taking her throne. Tell me, Jessica, how did you and Nathan meet? Jessica's mind raced through the prepared story. At a technology conference in Austin 2 years ago, I was presenting on consumer marketing trends, and Nathan attended my session. Nathan picked up the narrative smoothly. Her presentation challenged conventional approaches to digital engagement. I found her perspective refreshing. Refreshing, Margaret repeated. Nathan, you once told me that marketing conferences were a waste of productive time. That was before I attended Jessica's presentation, Nathan said without missing a beat. Dr. Hall was typing notes on her tablet. Jessica tried not to stare at it. And when did friendship become romance? Margaret pressed. Gradually, Jessica said, reaching for Nathan's hand. His fingers were cold, but he squeezed gently. We started having coffee after company meetings. Then lunch. Then dinners that lasted past midnight because we couldn't stop talking. Nathan talking past midnight? Margaret's eyebrow arched. My grandson goes to bed at exactly 10:30 every evening. He has for the past 15 years. Jessica felt panic rising but forced herself to stay calm. He changed his schedule. For me, Nathan looked at Jessica, and something flickered in his eyes. She made me realize that life isn't just about optimal sleep cycles and productivity metrics. How poetic, Margaret said dryly. And the wedding? Why so sudden? Why so secret? This was the dangerous part. Jessica took a breath. We got tired of hiding. The company has strict policies about workplace relationships, especially between executives and junior staff. We kept our relationship private to avoid complications. Until a photographer caught you together at the gala, Dr. Hall added. Until that, yes, Nathan confirmed. Once our relationship became public, maintaining the secret seemed pointless. We decided to make it official. Margaret studied them both for a long moment. Show me your rings. Jessica's stomach dropped. They had gotten the rings that afternoon in a rush trip to the jeweler, but they were still being engraved. The temporary bands they wore now were simple, borrowed from Nathan's assistant, David Park. They're being resized, Jessica said, holding out her hand. I have small fingers. Nothing ever fits properly. Margaret examined the plain gold band with obvious skepticism. The Blake family has an heirloom engagement ring. For generations. Did Nathan offer it to you? Jessica looked at Nathan, genuinely uncertain how to answer. I offered it, Nathan said quietly. Jessica declined. She wanted us to start our own traditions, rather than be bound by the past. It was a complete lie, but Margaret's expression softened slightly. That's rather mature of you, Jessica. Just wanted something that was ours, Jessica said, and surprisingly, that part felt true. Rachel appeared from the kitchen with a tray of drinks. She had insisted on staying to help, playing the role of supportive best friend. Tea, anyone? I made Earl Grey. That's Jessica's favorite, Nathan said immediately. Margaret accepted a cup. And yours, Nathan? Green tea. 1 sugar, no milk. Since when do you drink tea? You've always been obsessed with black coffee. Nathan hesitated for just a fraction of a second. Jessica convinced me to reduce my caffeine intake. She believes it improves sleep quality and emotional regulation. Dr. Hall was writing faster now. Emotional regulation, Margaret repeated slowly. Jessica, what exactly do you see in my grandson? He's brilliant, certainly, but he has the emotional range of a calculator. Jessica felt Nathan tense beside her. She squeezed his hand and looked directly at Margaret. I see someone who cares so deeply about everything he does that he's afraid to show vulnerability. I see someone who lost his parents young and built walls to protect himself. And I see someone who's willing to try even when it's uncomfortable, because he believes some things are worth the effort. The room went silent. Margaret stared at Jessica with an unreadable expression. Dr. Hall had stopped typing. Nathan was looking at Jessica like she had just solved an equation he'd been working on his entire life. That's surprisingly insightful, Margaret said finally. Most people see Nathan as cold and unfeeling. Most people don't look closely enough, Jessica said softly. Getting to know the real Nathan, after Margaret and Dr. Hall finally left, promising to return the next day for more observation. Jessica collapsed onto the sofa. That was exhausting, she groaned. Nathan loosened his tie. The first time she had seen him look anything less than perfectly composed. You were exceptional. The emotional insight response was particularly effective. It wasn't just an effective response, Jessica said, sitting up. I meant it. He looked at her with surprise. You meant it? Yes. I've worked for you for 3 years, Nathan. I've watched how you operate. You care about everything. You just don't know how to show it in normal ways. Nathan sat down beside her, maintaining careful distance. Normal ways? Like smiling, or saying thank you without turning it into a performance review, or admitting when something makes you happy. Happiness is subjective and difficult to quantify. See, that's exactly what I mean. Jessica turned to face him. You just turned happiness into a data problem. How else should I approach it? By feeling it, Jessica said. When was the last time you did something just because it made you happy? Not because it was productive or optimal or strategic, just because it felt good. Nathan was quiet for a long time. I don't remember. The admission hung in the air between them. Jessica felt her heart squeeze with unexpected sympathy. Okay, she said decisively. New rule. For the next 6 months, you have to tell me one thing every day that makes you genuinely happy. No calculations, no analysis. Just honest feelings. That seems impractical. It's necessary. If we're going to convince your grandmother, you need to actually experience happiness, not just perform it. Nathan studied her face. You're taking this very seriously. You're paying me $75,000 a month. I take all my jobs seriously. But even as she said it, Jessica knew it was more than that. Something about Nathan's loneliness resonated with her own. All right, Nathan agreed. 1 genuine happiness per day. Starting now. Starting now, Jessica confirmed. So what makes you happy today? He thought about it, his analytical mind clearly struggling with the emotional question. This, he said finally. This. Sitting here, having a conversation that isn't about quarterly projections or market analysis, talking to someone who challenges me to think differently. He met her eyes. That makes me happy. Jessica's breath caught, the way he looked at her, completely honest and unexpectedly vulnerable, made something shift in her chest. That's a good start, she said softly. Rachel poked her head out from the kitchen where she had been pretending not to listen. I'm heading out. You 2 kids behave yourselves. She winked at Jessica and grabbed her coat. After Rachel left, the penthouse felt suddenly very quiet and very intimate. We should establish sleeping arrangements, Nathan said, ever practical. The guest room is fully furnished. You can take the master bedroom if you prefer. Where will you sleep? I can use my home office. The couch converts. Jessica shook her head. Your grandmother is going to check Nathan. Married couples don't sleep in separate rooms. So what do you suggest? We share the bed. But we establish boundaries. Stay on our own sides. No crossing the invisible middle line. Nathan looked genuinely nervous for the first time since this entire situation began. That seems reasonable. They stood there awkwardly to people who had agreed to get married, but were still essentially strangers. I should tell you something, Jessica said. I talk in my sleep, and sometimes I steal blankets. My college roommate said I once rolled completely across the bed and pushed her onto the floor. I sleep in absolute silence and rarely move, Nathan said. I've been told it's unsettling. One date said I looked like a corpse. Jessica laughed, surprised. You went on dates? 3. All disasters. One woman said I was too analytical. Another said I made spreadsheets about feelings. The third one just left in the middle of dinner, without explanation. Did you make spreadsheets about feelings? Only once. It was an attempt to understand relationship dynamics through data visualization. Jessica laughed harder. Nathan, that's terrible. I'm aware. But he was almost smiling. That's why I need you. You understand things I can't quantify. When practice becomes real over the next 3 days, Margaret visited daily. She asked questions, observed their interactions, and brought Dr. Hall to analyze every gesture and glance. Jessica learned to read Nathan's subtle expressions, the tiny ways he showed emotion without words. He learned to touch her naturally, a hand on her back, fingers brushing as they passed objects. The small intimacies that couples shared. They established routines. Nathan made coffee for Rachel and tea for Jessica every morning. Jessica cooked dinners that didn't come from his usual meal prep service. They watched movies together, Nathan analyzing plot structures while Jessica threw popcorn at him for overthinking entertainment. You're supposed to enjoy the story, not critique the narrative framework, Jessica said during a romantic comedy. I can do both simultaneously. That's not how emotions work. Then teach me how they work. Jessica paused the movie and turned to face him on the couch. Okay, tell me what you're feeling right now. In this exact moment. Nathan considered the question seriously. Comfortable, content, slightly anxious about tomorrow's board meeting. Hungry, though we ate 2 hours ago. And something else I can't identify. What does the something else feel like? Warm, present, like I want this moment to continue longer than logic would suggest is necessary. Jessica's heart did a complicated flip. That's called being happy, Nathan. He looked surprised. I thought happiness would be more dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's just sitting on a couch with someone who gets you. They held each other's gaze, and Jessica felt the air shift between them. Nathan reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Is this okay? He whispered. Yes, Jessica breathed. He leaned in, and she met him halfway. The kiss was soft, questioning, nothing like the practice displays they had performed for Margaret. This was real. When they pulled apart, Nathan looked dazed. That wasn't in the contract. I know. We should discuss the implications, or Jessica suggested, her heart racing. We could stop analyzing and just see what happens. It seems highly unpredictable. That's the point. Nathan kissed her again, deeper this time, and Jessica felt herself falling into something she couldn't name or control. His hands moved to her waist, hers to his hair, and the careful boundaries they had established dissolved completely. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. This complicates our arrangement, he said. Everything about us is already complicated. True. He pulled back enough to look at her properly. Jessica, I think I'm developing feelings that extend beyond our contractual obligations. She laughed breathlessly. That's the most Nathan way to say you like me. I'm more than like you. I find myself thinking about you constantly. Wanting to make you smile? Feeling actual physical pain when Margaret criticizes you. These responses are highly inefficient and completely irrational. Welcome to emotions, Jessica said, cupping his face. They're messy and irrational, and sometimes they hurt, but they're also what makes life worth living. I want to revise our agreement, Nathan said seriously. Revise it how? Permission to pursue a genuine relationship alongside our contractual arrangement. to explore whether what we're experiencing has potential beyond 6 months. Jessica's answer was to kiss him again, and Nathan took that as the affirmative response it was. They fell asleep on the couch that night. Tangled together, the movie still paused on the television. For the first time in years, Nathan's carefully controlled life felt beautifully, wonderfully out of control. The society test Saturday evening arrived with the weight of final judgment. Margaret's society party was being held at the historic Hamilton estate, where New York's elite gathered to evaluate newcomers and reinforce social hierarchies. Jessica stood in front of the mirror. Wearing the emerald gown Nathan had bought her, it fit perfectly, hugging her curves in ways that made her feel both confident and terrified. Nathan appeared behind her, adjusting his bow tie. In his tuxedo, he looked like he belonged in this world of wealth and power. Jessica felt like an imposter. "You're nervous," he observed. 60 people who have known you your entire life are going to judge whether I'm good enough for you. Of course I'm nervous. Nathan turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "You're already good enough." "Better than I deserve, actually." Nathan Cross. Was that a compliment without data to support it? "I'm learning," he smiled, and it still amazed her how that simple expression transformed his entire face. "Remember what I told you? Be yourself. That's all you need to be." Rachel rushed in, camera ready. "Okay, you two look like you're about to attend the Oscars. Let me get pictures before you leave." They posed together, Nathan's arm around Jessica's waist, their bodies fitting together naturally now. What had started as awkward proximity had become comfortable intimacy. "You're really in love with him, aren't you?" Rachel whispered to Jessica while Nathan checked his phone. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to everyone with functioning eyes." Rachel hugged her. "Go knock them dead, babe. Show those snobby rich people what real class looks like." The Hamilton estate was everything Jessica expected and worse. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, waiters in white gloves carrying champagne that probably cost more per glass than her weekly grocery budget. Women dripped with diamonds. Men wore watches worth more than cars, and everyone stared as Nathan and Jessica entered. Margaret appeared immediately, resplendent in a burgundy gown, with Dr. Hall shadowing her as always. "Nathan, Jessica, you're precisely on time. How unusual for newlyweds to be so prompt." "Out force of habit," Nathan said smoothly. "Come. There are people eager to meet your mysterious bride." What followed was 2 hours of subtle interrogation, disguised as polite conversation. Every question was a trap, every comment a test. Mrs. Patricia Van Hamilton, dripping in pearls and judgment, cornered Jessica by the champagne fountain. "So you work in marketing? How quaint. Did you study at Harvard like Nathan?" "State school on scholarship," Jessica said, refusing to be ashamed. "I worked 3 jobs to pay for the rest." "How ambitious." The word was clearly meant as an insult. "And now you've married into one of New York's wealthiest families. Quite the upgrade." Jessica felt her temper rising, but kept her voice level. "I married Nathan because I love him. His bank account had nothing to do with it." "Of course, dear." Mrs. Van Hamilton's smile was poisonous. "I'm sure it was purely coincidental." Across the room, Nathan was surrounded by colleagues and family friends, all asking versions of the same question. Why Jessica? Why so fast? What were his real intentions? "She's not from our world," someone said, loud enough for Nathan to hear. "Exactly," Nathan replied. "She's from the real world, where people care about substance over status and character over pedigree." The group went silent. Nathan Cross never showed emotion publicly, never defended anyone, never revealed preference or attachment. "She's changed you," one older man observed. "Yes," Nathan agreed, "for the better." Dr. Hall was taking notes furiously. Jessica escaped to the balcony for air, overwhelmed by the constant scrutiny. She leaned against the railing, looking out over the manicured gardens, wondering if she could actually survive 6 months of this. They're brutal, aren't they? Jessica turned to find a young woman about her age wearing a silver dress and a sympathetic smile. "I'm Amanda Price," the woman said. "My husband Richard is one of Nathan's business partners. I went through exactly what you're going through 5 years ago. State school, Middle-class family, definitely not their kind of people. How did you survive it? Jessica asked. By remembering that their approval doesn't define your worth, and by being so genuinely obviously in love with my husband that they couldn't deny it. Amanda studied Jessica carefully. You really love him, don't you, Nathan? Jessica thought about the past week, the burnt pancakes and late-night conversations. The way Nathan listened when she talked about her family. How he remembered every small detail she mentioned. The kiss on the couch that had changed everything. Jessica said simply, I really love him, then you'll be fine. Love like that is rare in this world. They'll recognize it eventually. Amanda returned to the party, leaving Jessica alone with her thoughts. Love. She was in love with Nathan Cross, her cold, calculating, emotionally unavailable fake husband. The man who had hired her to play a role, but had somehow become the most important person in her life. There you are. Nathan appeared on the balcony, concern etched on his face. Mrs. Van Hamilton told me she had a delightful conversation with you. In her language, that means she was cruel. She implied, I'm a gold digger. She implied it. I'll make it explicit in my response that her opinion is neither requested nor valued. Nathan, you don't need to defend me.
Yes, I do.
He moved closer, his voice intense. You're my wife. These people don't get to make you feel inadequate because they're too shallow to recognize your value. Fake wife, Jessica corrected softly. Nathan shook his head. No, not anymore. Not for me. Jessica's breath caught. What are you saying? I'm saying that somewhere between the contract and the chaos, this became real. I don't know when exactly. Maybe when you called me a human calculator and meant it as both insult and truth. Maybe when you convinced me to watch romantic movies and didn't judge me for crying at the ending. Maybe when you kissed me on that couch and I felt something I didn't know I was capable of feeling. He took both her hands, his usual composure cracking. I'm saying I love you, Jessica. Not contractually. Not strategically. Actually, genuinely, terrifyingly, love you. Tears spilled down Jessica's cheeks. You're terrible at emotional declarations. I know. But I'm trying. You're terrible at timing, too. We're at your grandmother's party, I'm aware. But I couldn't wait another minute. I needed you to know. Jessica laughed through her tears. I love you, too. Your spreadsheets and your analytical brain and your complete inability to understand normal human emotions, all of it. Nathan kissed her there on the balcony in full view of anyone who might be watching, and neither of them cared. The truth revealed when they returned to the party, hand in hand and completely lost in each other. They found Margaret waiting with an expression Jessica couldn't read. My office, Margaret said. Both of you now. They followed her through the mansion to a private study. Dr. Hall was already there, tablet ready. The door closed behind them with ominous finality. Sit, Margaret commanded. They sat. Still holding hands? I'm going to ask you both a direct question, and I expect a direct answer. Margaret's sharp eyes moved between them. Was this marriage originally a business arrangement? Jessica's heart stopped. They were caught. All of it had been for nothing, Nathan said before Jessica could speak. Initially, it was contractual. I needed to prove to you that I was capable of a fulfilling personal life. Jessica needed financial security. We agreed to a 6-month arrangement. Nathan, Jessica whispered, horrified. But Nathan continued, his grip on Jessica's hand tightening. It stopped being fake approximately 4 days in. Everything since then has been genuine. I fell in love with her. Actually, completely, irrevocably in love. Margaret was quiet for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she smiled. I know you know. Jessica asked weakly. I've known since the first dinner. You two were terrible at hiding it. Margaret looked at Dr. Hall. Would you agree with my assessment? Dr. Hall nodded, smiling. Your initial interactions showed clear signs of contractual performance. Rehearsed responses, calculated touching, strategic eye contact. But by the second visit, the chemistry was undeniable. By the third, you were exhibiting all the classic signs of genuine attachment. Synchronized breathing, unconscious mirroring, authentic emotional responses. You fell in love while trying to fake it. So this was all a test? Nathan asked, his voice tight. Of course it was a test, Margaret said. Did you really think I became successful by being naive? I needed to know if you were capable of genuine feeling, Nathan. Your entire life has been about control and calculation. I needed to see if you could let someone in. She turned to Jessica. And you, my dear, needed to prove you weren't just interested in his money, that you could see the real person underneath the cold exterior, so you manipulated us. Jessica felt anger rising. I gave you an opportunity, Margaret corrected. You chose to take it. And in doing so, you found something real. I'd say that's a successful outcome. Nathan stood, pulling Jessica up with him. So what happens now? Do we still need to maintain this charade? Charade. Margaret laughed. Nathan, there's nothing fake about what you two have. The marriage certificate is legal. Your feelings are genuine. The only question is whether you choose to continue. Nathan looked at Jessica, his steel blue eyes full of vulnerability. Do you want to continue? Knowing that my grandmother orchestrated this entire situation? Jessica thought about the contract, the money, the complicated web of lies that had brought them together. She thought about burnt pancakes and movie nights, about a man learning to smile and feel and love, about finding her own capacity for love in the most unexpected place. The contract stipulated 6 months, Jessica said slowly. Nathan's face fell. But I think we should renegotiate. Jessica continued, watching hope bloom in his expression. How about 60 years instead? Nathan kissed her, deep and desperate and full of promise. When they pulled apart, they were both crying. Margaret wiped her own eyes discreetly. Well, that settles that. The company is yours, Nathan. You've proven you understand what actually matters. Thank you, grandmother. Don't thank me. Thank Jessica for seeing what everyone else missed. That underneath all that calculation is a good man capable of extraordinary love. Dr. Hall was smiling as she packed up her tablet. For the record, this is the most successful fake relationship turned real I've ever documented. I may write a paper. Please don't, Nathan and Jessica said simultaneously, then laughed. 6 months later, Jessica stood in the same penthouse where this had all begun. But everything was different now. The sterile white furniture had been replaced with comfortable pieces and warm colors. Photos covered the walls, moments from the past 6 months. Their real wedding, a small ceremony with just family and close friends, their honeymoon in Italy, where Nathan had actually relaxed for the first time in years, holidays with Jessica's family, where her mother had fallen in love with Nathan despite his initial awkwardness. Rachel emerged from the guest room, a permanent fixture in their lives. The movers are here for my stuff. Can't believe I'm actually getting my own place. You could stay, Jessica offered. We have the room. Be the third wheel to your disgusting happiness. No thanks. Rachel hugged her. Besides, someone needs to maintain a normal life to keep you grounded. Nathan appeared carrying boxes, his tie loosened and his sleeves rolled up. In 6 months, he had learned to be comfortable, to show emotion, to live life instead of just optimizing it. Your mother called, he told Jessica. She wants to know if we're coming for Sunday dinner. Every Sunday for the past 6 months. And she still calls to confirm, Jessica laughed. She wants to make sure I'm treating you well, are you? Nathan set down the boxes and pulled Jessica close. I'm trying. Every single day I'm trying. That's all I ask. Margaret's voice called from the kitchen. Nathan, this coffee maker is unnecessarily complicated. Come explain this technology to an old woman. Nathan kissed Jessica's forehead. Your grandmother is making me coffee now. I'm fully domesticated. Good. As Nathan went to help Margaret, Jessica looked around at their home. It was full of life now, messy and warm and nothing like the sterile penthouse Nathan had maintained before. Photos, books, Jessica's collection of mismatched coffee mugs, Nathan's precisely organized but no longer obsessively controlled space. Her phone buzzed with a message from David Park, Nathan's assistant. Anniversary interview request from Vogue. The journalist from last year wants to do a follow-up. Should I schedule? Jessica smiled, remembering that day on Fifth Avenue when they had lied so convincingly about their love. Except it hadn't been lies. Not really. They had been describing the love they were going to have just a few days too early. She typed back. Schedule it. This time we won't have to pretend. Nathan returned, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. Grandmother wants us to join her for dinner next week. She's feeling better, stronger than the doctors predicted. Because she has something to live for, Jessica said. Watching us be happy? Mission accomplished. Nathan handed her a mug. Earl Grey, 1 sugar, small amount of milk, you remember? I remember everything about you. It's become my favorite database to maintain. Jessica laughed. That's still the most Nathan thing you could say. Some things don't change. He pulled her close, and she melted into his embrace. But some things transformed completely. Through the window, Manhattan glittered with possibility. Somewhere in that city, people were making deals, chasing dreams, falling in and out of love. Jessica and Nathan had done all 3, in the most unexpected way possible. Hey Nathan, Jessica said softly. Tell me something that made you happy today. He smiled. That genuine smile she had worked so hard to teach him. This, right now. Every day with you. That's my answer for every day, forever. It's cheating. You're supposed to pick something different each time. I prefer to think of it as optimal efficiency. Why search for new happiness when I have found the perfect source? Jessica groaned. You're impossible, and you love me anyway. Unfortunately. Yes. They stood together, watching the sunset paint the city in gold and orange. 2 people who had started as strangers became fake spouses and ended up exactly where they belonged. Margaret appeared in the doorway, watching them with satisfaction. You know, she said, I may have orchestrated the beginning, but you 2 wrote the rest of the story yourselves. Best decision I ever made, Nathan said. Was opening that door and asking Jessica to marry me. Best decision I ever made, Jessica countered. Was saying yes. I'd argue my decision to interfere was the actual best decision, Margaret added. They all laughed, and in that moment, surrounded by the people who had become her family, Jessica realized something important. Sometimes the best love stories start with a contract, a lie, and a desperate plan. Sometimes fake becomes real. Sometimes to people who don't belong together, create a belonging all their own. And sometimes, just sometimes, waking up married to your cold CEO boss turns out to be the best accident that ever happened. Rachel called from the door. Are we taking that anniversary photo now or what? I've got plans tonight. What plans? Jessica asked. Wouldn't you like to know? Rachel winked. Now get over here, lovebirds. Let's document this happiness. They gathered together, Nathan and Jessica in the center. Margaret and Rachel on either side, David joining them at the last minute. A family built not by blood but by choice, by chaos, by a fake marriage that became the realest thing any of them had ever known. The camera flashed, capturing the moment. And in that photo, you could see it clearly. Nathan Cross, the man who had spent years building walls, surrounded by love, and actually genuinely smiling. And Jessica Blake Cross, the woman who had taught him how. Their love story had started with spreadsheets and contracts, but it ended with something no amount of calculation could have predicted. It ended with forever.